When we talk about McDonald's combo meals, we talk about savory meat, golden fries, and your favorite drink. Now, the combo meals just got crispy, juicy, and tender with the new Crispy Chicken Sandwich Combo. And you have to try it.
Get a classic or spicy crispy chicken sandwich with medium fries and a medium soft drink like Sprite for only $6. Promotion pricing may be lower than meal pricing. Cannot be combined with any other offer.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
It takes a lot of ingredients to fix or build a car, like cooking, but without the frozen dinner easy way out. eBay Motors has 122 million parts. It's always the right fitment, so you can follow any recipe to a T. Whether it's a vintage Italian coupe that's classic like Grandma's meatballs or a German luxury car that's as complicated as Oma's rouladen, to cook up something great in the garage, use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Hey everyone, this is the Almost World Podcast. Bringing to you mind-blowing interviews with guests from all over the world. So settle down, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like the podcast, please support Elmo's World Podcast on Patreon. Your support is what helps the podcast improve more and more. Faith Kakshak, she has a podcast called Ficsuasion Podcast. It's a story podcast and it's very interesting. And Faith has graduated and studying architecture for 4 years now, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York, and she is 21.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be on the show. I have been listening since I think you reached out to me on Twitter. It's a very interesting show. I think, I'm very happy to be a part of it. So what was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, so what is your favorite cartoon and why?
Okay, so I just recently finished watching She-Ra, Goddess of Power, and it's the newest version that I think DreamWorks was in charge of, and I just recently watched it. It had like 6 seasons, so I think that's my favorite recently. Favorite.
Okay, what I've never heard of it but what is it about?
So it's basically about this young lady who she's raised in this boot camp. They're like soldiers kind of, and she doesn't know anything about her background, her childhood, or anything like that. And then she finds a sword and realizes that the sword basically helps her summon an alter ego called She-Ra. So she basically can turn into like a superhero lady. And yeah, it leads into like a bunch of adventures. She realizes a lot of stuff about her life was a lie. It's like so much gets uncovered as the series goes on for like 6 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems that you really love stories, and in fact I can see that in your own passion for stories, you've made some for your podcast, and I can see actually a lot of deep characterization or character development when it came to your stories. For example, the Indian in your story. What was it? The name? I forgot. I'm sorry.
It's I think you're talking about Eden Forever.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really fun story to record because I had been thinking of starting a storytelling podcast for like about a year, but I didn't have time to do it since I was in school. And so I finally found the time to do it, and I was looking for stories that I could record, something that could be really interesting to keep someone's interest in terms of an audio experience. And I read that and I was just like, oh my God. Like when I read the whole thing and I got to the end, I was like, that plot twist was so good. I was like, I have to record it for um for my podcast. And it was basically what started me into the storytelling and how I kind of it created like the base for what I choose to record and what I choose to put out on my podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and when you write the stories, how do you write them? Like, is it simply something you've developed, a story that you've developed, or something that came to you spontaneously? How do you write your stories?
So I actually don't write these stories because I hate essay writing. Essay writing is like was like the worst part of school for me because it's just like hard for me to like write and punctuate correctly. So what I did was I thought of like a strategy that would be able to would promote my podcast basically. So I went on there's this app called Wattpad, and basically writers who want to like, you know, get into writing and stuff like that, they write stories and little shorts and all of that stuff. So I was like, I would record a story off of Wattpad for a writer who's just starting, and I would basically help promote their Wattpad, and they would also help promote my podcast since I'm not a good writer, but I could tell stories and um, I can use my voice, so that's how I get the stories. But I have a story that I'm working on that I actually wrote myself. My next story that's gonna be up, I did myself, which was it's a very short story, so it didn't take too much out of me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get your friends or the other voices to like work together? Even during the pandemic, how did you do that?
Well, I do a lot of the voices myself
Mm-hmm.
because I can do a wide range of voices. I can also do like accents and stuff. But for male characters, it's kind of harder for me to do it myself. So I have a boyfriend who I live with. So he does some of the voices. You know, he doesn't have a wide range, so he gets like one or two characters. And I also have another friend or a couple of friends who do music or are into music, so they have experience using audio and recording and getting like the clear audio to me. So I just ask them, you know, if they're available, you know, they can record. I also live in the same building with a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So she lives upstairs. So like we're basically like close to each other. So I'm not making her come all the way from like outside of town to my house. So those are the main people who do the voices. But other than that, I try to limit it to just me and my boyfriend since we're all in the same house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
actually, when it comes to being actually this is sort of personal, but is it really normal for Americans, for example, to 21-year-olds to live with their partners or boyfriend and girlfriend?
No, I don't think it's like normal. It's just for me. I stopped living with my parents when I was like 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I've basically been independent for a long time. And I didn't start living with him because, you know, I was so head over heels in love or whatever. It's more of a like financial situation. Like I said earlier, I used to live in Queens, and the rent got so expensive. It was way too much, and I had to handle school, and I was basically out of a job because of the pandemic. So it's just absolutely cheaper. But if I had the option, I wouldn't necessarily be living with my boyfriend at my age, I guess. But you know, I'm young, but in the context of how long I've been by myself and how long I've been supporting myself, I'm not young in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah, but I wouldn't say it's normal.
yeah, when you say you support yourself, does it mean that you're 100% independent, right? Or you still get financial assistance from your parents?
My parents assist me only for what I pay in school, or basically what I paid in college. But not the entire thing. They could like, pay half or less, and I handle the rest of it. So basically, I work and I pay my rent and I provide for myself in terms of what I eat and how I get around. Um, so yeah, that's what I call, independent.
Okay, okay. It's really
Hmm.
amazing, me myself, I also started work or started having a salary like when I was 18 years old, but
Hmm.
it was the same time I was it was like a work college thing because I joined the military, you know, and the funny thing
That's
though,
really cool.
yeah, after 2 years in the military, I resigned because of very confidential stuff. But yeah, and so I really understand that when it comes to being young, it having support from parents is actually very very important, and we cannot deny that. But how when it came to that, that you're not as privileged as others and you have to work in order to support yourself, to provide for your own needs in some instances. How do you think is the is you some would say that is a disadvantage? How would you approach that idea? Do you feel like life is better if you were rich or stuff like that?
Well, I don't consider my family poor or something. We're more middle class. It's just more it would be great, if my parents could have paid it all and, could like, give me all the money I want and like fucking pour it like water on me. It would have been great, but I wouldn't have learned as much as I've learned, so far. Because a lot of my friends, they still live with their parents. They get that luxury of like not even have to know how much they pay in school, and that would be great, yes. But I'm appreciative of the path that I had to take because I got to learn how to budget and how to get around and how to manage myself on my own, which is great,
Mhm.
and I don't regret it. I don't feel like I it was a too much or anything. It was just about time management and what am I doing when I'm not in school? What am I doing with all that free time and how am I managing all of that stuff? And I don't regret it. I'm actually pretty happy because now that I'm done with school,
Mhm.
I can
Mhm.
it's not like I'm being thrown into like a new world where I don't know what I'm doing. It's like I'm just going to continue what I've been doing just without school, which actually feels less stressful,
Mhm.
now
Mhm.
that school's off the plate. Um, but yeah, it would be cool to have all the money in the world.
Okay. So actually this is a very personal question though, but I feel that in some way you're a role model to a lot of 21 years old being independent and all. But when it comes to, for example, sex,
Mhm.
how do you control that? How do you avoid any accidents or how do you what is your attitude towards sex?
Well, I mean, it's all about being safe
Mm-hmm.
and knowing what you want. Like, what are your priorities? Like, if do you want to have a child? Like, if you know, got pregnant or whatever, are you ready for that? Is that something that you'd be okay with if it happened? Because if you're not, you should be very serious about protection, about, all of that stuff. But if you're not, if you're not as bothered, and you're just like, if I get pregnant, it's fine. If I have a child, it's fine, and all that stuff. Then do what you want to do. I guess it's all personal. It's all like up to the individual. Me personally, I stay very protected and, try not to have any mishaps because I have so much more that I want to do before I get to that point. But yeah, sex is just, it's up to you. It's open for interpretation to whoever it is out there.
Okay. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've been actually I've never talked to anyone about this on my podcast, and I want to touch the topic. For example, let's say that you tried to be have protection, but it didn't work, and you got pregnant, and it was out of your plans. What would you do in that situation? Would you? Let's talk about abortion here, and it's a very sensitive topic, but I think it's very important to talk about it. So, for example, in your case, let's just say, if it happened, what would you do?
I'm open to it. It depends. It all depends on really my financial situation, because I don't believe in like bringing a child into the world to suffer, because that's unfair. Okay, you can't expect to have a child and be like, oh, we can't provide you with all these things and just expect that to be okay. Because personally, if I was born into a life where we had like literally nothing, and my parents are blaming me for things that happen to them, I would feel like it was unfair. Like, why bring me into a life if you're not ready to take care of whatever I need, if you couldn't provide or anything like that. And a lot of times when kids are put into those situations, they end up like, going to like bad, like following horrible paths. I know there are kids who like overcome that and they like, rise above, but a lot of the time they don't. If anything, they kind of just follow a horrible path, or think of alternative ways of getting what they want, and that's I feel like that's worse than just getting an abortion. Also, I mean, there's also the option of giving up for adoption and etc., but adoption's great and everything, but a lot of the time, especially here, it's very difficult for kids to get adopted. So even if you give up your child after having your child for like 9 months, it's not guaranteed that your child is going to find a home. It's not guaranteed your child is going to find a good home. It's not guaranteed your child is going to live a good life. So why roll the dice if you can't, But if you can manage, if you can get by, if you can get the money, have the child if you want to. And some people are not in the state of mind to have a child, like mentally. And there's also, if people who are like pressured and they have the child anyway, even though they mentally didn't want to, and then they end up, being abusive and hating the child and etc. So, so it's all open for interpretation. It's all depends on situations, and I just think people shouldn't be ashamed to get an abortion if they want to.
Okay. Then a lot of people would ask like, would you treat for example a 7-month child inside a pregnant mother as a human, or how would you put it that way? Because
well, I think there's a point where, I think the doctors would tell you I don't know how it goes, but I think the doctors would tell you when it's like humane to do it and when you're past that point. But if you're past that point, then like I guess abortion's off the table, and it would be very unfair for you to carry on to do it. But if you're not, you go ahead with it. I guess after you're past the point that you can or can't do abortion, you should consider other options, like giving someone else your child to take care of, or double up. get two jobs or do what you have to do, because at that point, they'll like it's becoming a full-on human being that if you commit an abortion or intentionally try to kill it off, that's like murder.
Okay.
So
Yeah, but
there's that. Yeah.
what about, for example, let's say women who have had like 19 or 20 abortions? What would you say about that? Would you still say that what they're doing is ethical, even if they didn't pass through the point where doctors would say, this is inhumane? Let's say that on the first month they get the abortion, but they did it 20 times over their lifetimes. Would you say what they did is moral?
Well, it's immoral if you're intentionally not being protected. If it's happened and you still are not taking protection, you're not like, taking birth control or using condoms or whatever you have to do to protect yourself, then yeah, that's wrong when you're just like abusing the option basically. But if it's a situation where, your partner is basically bullying you to not be protected, but you want to, that's a situationship, I guess. You're just in a situation that's pretty horrible, and you're being placed with only one option. Your partner is like basically forcing you to, abuse the abortion option. In that case, I would think it's fine, I guess. You just have to like get out of the relationship or, remove yourself from that situation. But if you are just on your own deciding not to protect yourself and just intentionally, getting pregnant to get an abortion, yeah, that's pretty bad.
Okay. So, I'm guessing that you've written like a fine line between protecting yourself, but in the cases that your protection didn't work, it would be okay to get an abortion, right? Because due to financial problems. But for example, there are a lot of people that were born in situations that they were born in very poor conditions, but besides that, they were happy with their lives. They were happy that they were born and thankful that they were not aborted. So what of the people that were supposed to be alive, but that they were okay with being born in poor conditions, but their lives were taken away? How would that go?
Well, I would say those situations where that actually happen are very few in the broad topic of that, being born into horrible conditions. Yeah, obviously you're going to be grateful to Allah because you've tasted life, right? But if you haven't, you wouldn't know the difference. It's like, you wouldn't know the difference. But if you have tasted life and, it's up to you. It's like there's very few situations where they're happy with like a horrible life and like serious poverty. Like I'm not talking about like, just going hungry for a night. Like there's people who are like really poor. Most of the people like that are born into poor situations, there's only that 1% that are actually grateful for being born anyway, even though it's like a horrible life and all of that stuff. I'm just like, I just don't believe in that. I feel like that is unfair. It's super unfair because then the kid grows up with all of these traumas and the horrible things that happen to them in their childhood and stuff like that. It's it's not great.
Okay.
I don't think it's great.
Yeah, and also that a lot of people would say that it's the mother's body and she decides what happens to her body, right? So it's more of pro-choice, yeah. And so
Yeah.
how about we talk about accountability, right? If a woman or a man does something, for example, has sex or engages in activities such as that would get them drunk or would make them high, and so that would clog their or fog their judgment, and so in that case they would be very open to sexual intercourse, right? And so knowing that taking part in that activity would have very very immense consequences, such as getting pregnant, don't you think that they should be responsible for that action and not take another life?
They should be responsible, but it takes two to tango. What is the partner saying about all of this, or whoever it is, And I understand people get drunk. Yes, that happens, but they should both be accountable. If anything, not just the woman, they should both be accountable. If they're asking the woman to be accountable, for the fact that she let herself have too much and forget where she was or whatever, the case may be. They should also ask the man, what was he doing? If he was fine, he should know better.
Mm-hmm.
And if they both agree that, abortion's not a thing that they want to do, cool. If he doesn't agree, still, she's the one who's going to have to give birth. Mm-hmm. People die during pregnancy and childbirth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she's not in the right state of mind. You don't know if she's going to be nice to that child. If the child is born and she's a horrible mom to that child, people are still going to come for her. People are still going to say, why are you like this? Why are you like this to this child? She didn't want to be a mom. And I get there is accountability. If she does have an abortion, she should be accountable for that next time she's in a situation where she's trying to party or whatever. She should remember what happened before. That's the type of accountability that I'm about, not unfairness. Like when we're just like one-sided about it. If we're going to judge her, let's judge him. Let's judge both of them,
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends on, I guess, where the government stands. But if we're talking about like just a neutral government, I feel like they should provide, supplies in terms of both pro-lifers and pro-choice people, provide hospitals that can provide abortion options to someone, and also for if we're talking about pro-choice people, they should provide services that can help you out when you first become like a mother, or, I'm not saying that they should have to sponsor someone their entire life, because obviously there are bigger problems and things are going to happen to the country, that budgets are going to change and all of that stuff. But they should definitely make provisions in the very beginning, because sometimes some people are just kicked out of the hospital with nothing, with exactly what they came in and a child, So they have to they should at least provide with the first stuff, maybe even if it's just for the first week. As countries are different, and, depending on how rich a country is, that determines how much they can help, but they should at least help with something, for both options of,
Mm-hmm.
pro-life or pro-choice.
Yeah, I really agree with that. And so in terms of how, for example, let's be specific, America, how do you think it's doing when it comes to solving or giving provisions to these necessities?
I don't, I don't know specifically how it's handled in other states.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say, for where I live, it's even, like it's fair,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of help that's provided for when you just have a child, or if you want to get an abortion, the options that are available for both sides is like a fair amount of help. But, I feel like still there should be funds, because there's this constant war between people who are like, there's pro-lifers and pro-choice, and they're always fighting. I believe that if someone is pro-life, you should contribute to funds that help someone after they have a child. Don't just talk. It's not just about yelling at them and calling them murderers and irresponsible women or whatever. they always say. It's about helping. Your actions should speak louder than your words. Like I'm pro-life, and if I can contribute, sorry, I'm pro-choice, and if I can contribute, to a hospital, to a fund, I will. It's not just about talk. And if you're pro-life, you should be contributing, if even if it means this. In some states, they stand in front of abortion clinics and literally judge you, like they yell at women coming in and out, from abortion clinics. Like, instead of standing there yelling, you can stand there with like a basket of stuff. Maybe someone would consider your point of view if you do it that way, nicer, instead of being super aggressive about it. So I feel like, it's great where I am, but I don't know how it is in other places, like in the South and all of that. I don't know how bad it is over there, or what they're doing to help. So I don't want to say anything about them. I'm just gonna say about where I am, and where I am, they're doing their best.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So it's really funny though that it's different here in my country because we are a unitary form of government. So one law, it covers the whole country, but in America it's by state. So how does that actually work? Like, for example, if let's say abortion is not legal in some states, right? So if you were to be a citizen of this state where abortion is legal, but is illegal, but you go to a state where abortion is legal, would your original state hold you accountable for that or not? No.
No, they won't, because you did it outside the state.
Mm-hmm.
From what I've heard, I don't want to say anything like an expert, because I only know from my point of view and from where I'm sitting. But from what I've heard, I don't think they will hold you accountable. I've actually heard, if someone in a state that it is, not allowed, they have to travel out to like a state that it's allowed. But I don't think your state holds you accountable. I think they only do if you try to get it done in your state that it's illegal, and then you can like get arrested or something. I don't know what the penalties are. I'm just saying.
Okay, it's no problem. Then I want to talk now that we're talking about America. How do you think it's going? Because from where I stand, I'm from outside of America, and I just look at the news. It could be pretty biased based on what they're showing specifically. Like for last month, they focus on the riots and the looting, but I don't think that's an overall example of what's really happening. Like there are a lot of peaceful protests, but what's going on there right now from your point of view?
I think everything's calmed down a lot. I don't think there were any protests really going on other than like social media. I don't think there are any actual protests still going on. And everything has been, I don't think there was even any looting, like from where I am in New York City. It has always been peaceful over here. I didn't hear of anything violent happening or anything getting burnt or broken. Everything was just really peaceful, and it was just all about communication. And everything's calmed down now. It's just more social media. I haven't really seen anything on the streets or anything like that. Yeah, and because New York City is more democratic, and there's a lot of Democrats. I don't think that there hasn't been any like fighting in terms of like, Democrats, Republicans. It's just been, everybody's been agreeable, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, awesome. And I just watched the news here, and it's been really bothering me because I yesterday or last night I interviewed someone, and there's this 5 words that really hit me. He said, "It is what it is," So I researched it, and it was a quote from Trump, right? And so I don't know if you've heard that. Yeah. What can you say about that? Like, I really can't comprehend what it means. Like, it is what it is. You know, he kept saying it like 10 times in the episode. And what does it mean?
Well, I think it just means when something's out of your hand and you can't really change anything about it, you're just like, it is what it is, what can you do about it, really?
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of accepting the fact that that's the way things are. It's just kind of an expression.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, it means anything bad. Um, Trump did say that because he's pretty mundane about everything. And, I don't want to get into the politics of the things he does and what he doesn't do because, oh my God, it will literally go on forever. Um, but yeah, I think that's what he meant by it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you think that's a healthy approach when it comes to looking at the COVID numbers in your country? That okay, it is what it is. 150,000 people died. We can't do anything about that anymore. But we just have to do what we can do, right? So, how do you think is that a healthy approach?
It's not in terms of the numbers, but it is in terms of what the leaders are doing about it because there's only so much the citizens can do, but Trump has a whole army of people who believe so strongly whatever he says, and if he doesn't believe that COVID is a real problem, they also won't believe COVID is a real problem, and we all go downhill from there. And you know you just can't change these people's minds. It's the thing. That's why you just say it is what it is, because you can't really change their minds. They're really like zombies. They just follow him to the end, you know, to the end of the cliff, and just dive down if they need to. But so like you can't like put a gun to their head and tell them to wear a mask or anything. You really can't change their mind. So it is what it is in terms of that, but in terms of the numbers, we can obviously do more.
Mm-hmm.
We could obviously do more than say it is what it is, but it's not just us, up to us. It's up to Trump and his horde of people.
Clearly, you can do more, but I guess when it comes to the type of people that really really follow Trump and what he says, well, you can't change them. I guess so. You just have to work your way around that, being a democratic country. So for example, let's talk about the Black Lives Movement. When it started and where it's gone now. Do you agree with everything, or do you find some problems in it?
I agree with what I agree, and I'm not gonna say I'm 100% for or against. I agree with what I agree in. It's great that it has brought to light a lot of problems that have been going on for years. It's great that it is at its peak, most powerful right now. It's great that it's more understandable now, and it's great that it's happening while people, can contact and like talk to one another about it, because like in previous times or like in history when it has, there's been like Black Lives Movement or like fight for equality, people only see what the media shows them and what's on TV, and no one really talks. There's no like talking to each other about what's actually happening. And I'm grateful that it's happening now, that people can talk to each other and see it from each other's point of view directly without like a middleman, like the media or the news or whatever, being the middleman telling both sides whatever it is they want to feed both sides, you know? and I'm grateful with the things that it has accomplished. You know, obviously, with every movement,
Mm-hmm.
problems are presented, and I don't want to say it's because of the movement or whatever. It's because of the opposition of the movement. You know, everything the movement stands for is positivity, and any problems that come out of it is because of the opposition to it. You know, and that's all I'm gonna say on that. Yeah, I just, you know, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So one last question though. I want you to answer, and I want you to be very descriptive though, in this question. Um, wh- when it comes to being an individual, for example, let's say in America, how would you, as an individual, make the world a better place and make a good difference? You know, and being someone like you.
Okay. Um, how do I make a difference? Well, I try to educate as much as I can. I try to, say like, speak my opinion as politely as possible and try to get people to understand rather than fight them on what I think versus what they think. Everyone's entitled to their opinions, but, I can voice mine and you can voice yours, and let's try to agree on stuff. And if we don't agree, we agree to disagree. And that's one thing I try to do. And if there's stuff that I can contribute to, funds and donations, little stuff like, going to certain stores and not going to some other stores because of where they stand in terms of everything that's going on. Those are the little things that I can do from where I'm standing. Like, I'm not rich and I don't have unlimited time, but just based on what I can do with my budget and what I can do with my time that I do have, I try to do it. I try to stay educated too. I don't just watch Democratic stuff. Like, even though I am on that side, I try to watch what the Republicans are saying. What are they saying? What are they thinking? So I'm not just biased and just basing things on one side without listening to what the other side has to say, because that's unfair, And those are the little things that I'm trying to do to, I guess, make a difference, even if it's just in my little, bubble of people.
So that's the end of it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is your host, Elmo Ador Jr. And thank you for listening in. And please subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. Please follow this. Please. Thanks.
Gearheads know that some projects need so many parts, it feels like you need a whole storage unit just to store them. That's what eBay Motors' 122 million parts are for. Think of it as your virtual parts garage. They've always got the right fitment at the right prices. Use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.